How's it going, everybody? It is Dennis, and we're back with another video, and it's that time of the month. YieldMax ETF has announced its distributions for the month of July, and we're going to be going over on our spreadsheet, as usual, every single distribution that we're getting for the dividends we own. So, of course, I own 5 ETFs from YieldMax ETF. YMAX is not going to get paid this month, of course, not yet at least. So we're going to be talking about TSLY, AMZY, APLY, and GOOY. Of course, as you can see, these are all the distribution amounts. If you guys don't know, you can check it out on their Twitter page, on their, they send out an email as well, or any other YouTuber that tracks this. I'm not going to go over every single distribution. I'm just going to be going over my own distributions. So, looking at my distribution for the month of July, let's get started with TSLY. So we're going to go ahead and change this over to the month of July, so we can zoom in on that only for now. So, looking at TSLY, we have 354.2143 shares as of July, and the dividend that was paid was a very high dividend and very surprising and very good, great actually. It's a great dividend from TSLY this month, which was $1. Well, we're obviously 0.0035, but we're going to just say $1. $1 was paid from TSLY, which gave us $355.45 earned from TSLY. TSLY is back. Of course, this probably is not going to happen next month, but if it does, that'll be great. But TSLY is back. It's paying dollar dividends again and hopefully keeps going or staying at the same. Of course, I highly doubt it. I don't think next month will deliver as good as it did this month. But of course, that depends if TSLY runs up or not. But TSLY did pay $355.45 to myself, or $1 per share. Moving on, of course, to AMZY. And if you guys can notice, or maybe you guys remember, my shares are up on AMZY, and that is because I invested more into AMZY because I went below the 10% mark. We're at 213 shares for AMZY, and the dividend received is lower than last month, and we'll go over that, of course, after this, but it was 0.765 or 76.5 cents per share from AMZY for a total of $162.95. Not too shabby, of course, lower than the 90 cents we have been receiving from AMZY, but of course, TSLY makes up for it with the $1 dividend per share. Moving on, we have, of course, APLY. APLY, we have 181.70 shares, and this is growing because we're reinvesting into APLY. And APLY paid us a 0.3233 per share, and that gave us a total of $58.74. And then moving on to GOOY, we have 133.5969 per shares, and that paid us a total dividend of 0.4679 per share for a total of $62.51. Now, with APLY, APLY has gained. APLY is actually growing after I made that video telling you guys that APLY is the next upcoming YieldMax ETF that will have high dividends and high growth. APLY has grown, and I'm now back at break even, or how much I purchased each share for, so I'm at my average cost per share, meaning I'm in the green, I earned all my dividends, and it continues to reinvest and grow, and Apple, the underlying, continues to grow, and APLY with it. With GOOY as well, I am now in the positives at around plus $50, plus $100 positive on GOOY. I'm not quite sure how much that is in percentage-wise, probably like 2 to 4% wise growth, with the dividends not included. That's just overall share growth, and with dividends, it is even higher. Now, of course, YMAX has not paid yet, and we don't know how many shares we're going to have yet for YMAX when the dividend pays, so these are empty at the moment. But our grand total for the month of July is $639.65. $639.65. You guys are going to see that this is already beating some of the months that I had received dividends from. And with YMAX, when YMAX is included with this, it will beat every single month. But we're going to get that to in a second. First, we're going to go over how I'm going to distribute all these dividends received. So, of course, with TSLY, we have $355.45. With AMZY, we have $162.95. If you guys do not know already, I take my TSLY position, I split it 50-50. $177.73 will go back into TSLY, and $177.73 will be divided into 3 pieces, as well as the AMZY dividend of $162.95, while it stays above the 10% mark, will be distributed into 3 pieces, so $54.32, $59.24, add that together, and we'll have $113.56 that will be reinvested into every single YieldMax ETF. So YMAX will get $113, GOOY will get $113, and APLY will get $113. including the reinvestment of what they earned themselves. So GOOY will get 113 and APLY will get 113, plus they will get another 62.51 and a 58.74 on top of that. The reason I'm doing this because my TSLY position is above 10%, my AMZY position is above 10% of my overall portfolio, so I'm using the dividends to then fund APLY and GOOY. APLY, as you can see, is only paying 58.74, GOOY is paying 62.51. APLY will be able to get me roughly 3 and 4 shares with these dividends, and GOOY will get me another, once again, 4 to 5 shares with these dividends. If I add in my TSLY and AMZY distributions into GOOY and APLY, that gets me another roughly 8 to 10 shares on each ETF. I'm speeding the process of which I grow my dividends, which is why I'm growing, I would say, at a dramatic pace, or a quick pace. If we go ahead and look at all the dividends paid, we can see that we're growing at a pretty good pace. So let's go ahead and take a look. Compared, when we look at TSLY, we can see we were receiving 262, 262, 227, 235, 223. In June was a very disappointing month. We received 223. We thought we would continue to grow after May, but we went back down to 223. But it all has changed for the month of July. We're at 355.45, higher than what we were back in January, back before the reverse split. Of course, 355.45, I did increase the shares I have, so technically this 354, if we did the opposite of reverse split, if we bring it back up to these, we multiply this by 2, this will give us roughly 700 shares, which is way higher than the 616 I had previously, or the 648. So of course we have more shares, that's why we're receiving more, but the dividends per share has increased and is very great to see. So TSLY is doing great. We're back up. Of course, I'm 100% sure we're not going to get this high of a dividend in August. If we do, that'll be great, but I highly doubt it. As long as the dividends per share continue to increase, I'm all happy. Nice and dandy from TSLY. Moving on, AMZY, as you can see, we were at 197, then we went to 203, and now that we dipped below the 10% portfolio mark, we went to 213 shares owned, and the dividends have went down for this month. But what can you do? Amazon has stayed stable, actually dropped a little bit, and AMZY dropped with it, so kind of makes sense, but it's okay. We went from 97 to 95 cents per share to 76 cents per share, and of course our dividends went down with it. They're still higher than the other months prior, but $162.95. A little bit low than expected, but it's fine. TSLY makes up for it. Now looking at APLY. APLY also went down a little bit. Well, it went down from the previous months. As you can see, APLY does bounce around that area of 30 to 40 cent mark, 41, 38, 33, 40, 32. But our shares have been increasing as well. We have 115, 116, 119. Then we went up to 162, 71, and 81. And our dividends went up with it. Right now we receive 58.74. It's lower than the 69.42. And it's higher than the 55.06. But that 55.06 was based off 162 shares comparative to now where we have 181 shares. And we're still at 58.74. So that's why I continue to put more TSLY dividends and AMZY dividends into APLY, GOOY, and YMAX. With GOOY, we take a look. We have 62.51. Not that bad compared to the previous month of 69.03. But we have added 33 shares on top of it. So it kind of makes sense why we received more. Now we received 68 cents at the 133. We would probably be at $80 total. Once again, it's whole part of the game. There's times where it's low, there's times where it's high. If there's not a lot of volatility in the stock, underlying stock itself, we will not receive high dividends or high premiums, which fuel the dividends. So it's kind of expected, but still 62.51, 58.74 is not too shabby. And so the same with AMZY 162. It is lower than expected for the 162 compared to the other ones. But still, like I said, TSLY makes up for it, and we're still hitting highs. As you can see, we're at $639.65 for the month of July, compared to 638 of May, 485 of April, 468 of March, and not much has changed since then. Of course, we added more YMAX position, and that has boosted our returns. But besides that, not much has changed with GOOY, APLY, AMZY, and TSLY, and what was that? Which one am I missing? APLY. Not much has changed with that, of course, besides the new tactic that I'm using for reinvestment, which is 50% of TSLY and 100% AMZY going into GOOY, APLY, and AMZY. But besides that, not much has changed except YMAX being added. And of course, as you can see, YMAX is not in here. If we get that $127 on YMAX, we will be at $750 earned for the month of July. Of course, we'll have to see this at the end of the month when I go over how much YMAX pays me and all the other ETFs and option strategies pay me, but I'm looking at $750 earned for July. So we are getting a consistent amount of growth for every single month, which is great to see. The dividend ETFs are working. The dividend reinvestment strategy is working. The 10% portfolio line or baseline is working. So everything is working out perfectly. And if we go down to the total of how much we earned for 2024, July is, of course, the next half of the year. And so far with that, we've earned $3,849.47. Now we add a YMAX payment, which will probably be pretty high. Of course, we've added more shares into it. I hope the dividend per share is higher than 73, but if it's 73, then it'll roughly be somewhere around 127 to maybe the 140 range. If we do get $140, then we will be roughly at $4,000 earned for the year of 2024 from dividends alone. So pretty good payment from YieldMax ETFs for the month of July. Let's go ahead and just zoom out for a second. But yes, pretty good payments for the month of July from YieldMax ETFs. TSLY carried this month, $1 per share. Beautiful from TSLY. $355 earned from TSLY. AMZY was low, APLY was low, GOOY was low. But of course, GOOY and APLY make sense. It seems like their volatility is a little bit, I guess, stable, but in the same time low. There's not a lot of movement going on, and most of them are just growing. And whenever stocks are growing up, their volatility is a little bit low because, you know, there's no up and down movements. It's all just straight up. With AMZY, on the other hand, also is going straight up, so it kind of makes sense why volatility dropped a little bit. But the drop in dividends per share was quite a lot. We got 95 cents down to 76 cents. But what can you do? We're still growing. The portfolio is doing well. And if we look at the bottom, we can see how much we have earned so far from each ETF on their own. For TSLY, we've earned $1,909.92 for the year of 2024. For AMZY, we've earned $1,028.73. For APLY, we've earned $360. For GOOY, $251. And from YMAX, $298. As you can see, YMAX is catching up to GOOY and APLY. Of course, we've added a lot more shares into YMAX, and YMAX also pays a lot more per share. But the dividend, technically, the return is lower than APLY and GOOY. And I'm pretty sure YMAX is more expensive per share than GOOY and APLY. So I have more money into YMAX technically than GOOY and APLY. So it kind of makes sense why it's paying more. But still, YMAX is doing well. YMAX is performing quite well when it comes to share value. It is down for the month of July, but it's fine. The S&P 500 is struggling a little bit. And also they're adding a lot of new funds into it that have a lot of Bitcoin into them, or they rely on Bitcoin for their volatility. So since Bitcoin is down, it kind of makes sense why YMAX would be down. And also since S&P 500 and the QQQs are kind of stable at the moment, would make sense why YMAX is stable or low at the moment as well. But overall, a good month for the month of July. We've earned $639.65. We still have YMAX payments to come in, and when they do come in, I think we'll probably be at around $750 mark or maybe even higher. So that's a great way to start off the month of July. We still have QDTE that has to pay us for this whole month, and of course I've been tracking that as well. I'm actually going to expand on this. I might make its own little slide as well, because this is a little bit inaccurate, and I just deleted that. This is a little bit inaccurate. I have to do weeklies. I don't know why it keeps deleting itself, but I have to do weeklies because, you know, counting this way is quite inaccurate and it doesn't really add up that well. So we're going to make a new little slide for this where we do weekly transactions so we can do a little bit better math. And of course, just track it a lot better. So it's a little bit more accurate when you guys go over and when I go over myself. But overall, QDT is doing great. I actually bought more shares today. This is the Wednesday of the July 4th week, and everything's doing well. The account's doing well. We're actually nearing new year highs. We're getting really high on our account. It's getting great. It's doing great. It's performing well. And I can't wait to show you guys how it's performing at the end of this month. The poor man covered calls are working great. The synthetic covered calls are working great. The iron condors are doing great. So overall, account's doing great. YieldMax ETF is paying great. QDT is doing a great job. Everything is great so far. And of course, when everything's great, you always get ready for times of when things are not great, when things aren't downturns. And of course, that is why I'm building more of a YieldMax ETF and dividend portfolio. I'm adding a lot more into that. That is because I want to have a hedge where I could get weekly payments from QDTE and of course monthly payments from YieldMax ETFs and other dividend ETFs, that in the case of a downturn, I'll be able to handle any margin calls I might experience if it comes to that. But besides that, that was the month of July. Did pretty well. I hope your guys' portfolios did well as well. Just comment down below, tell me how your portfolios did, how they performed, which ETFs you hold, and what dividends you received, and how much you received, if you want to talk about that. But thank you so much for everybody so watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, where we'll be talking about some interesting topics. Maybe we'll talk about some option strategies, synthetics, poor man covered calls, iron condors, all of that sorts. Or maybe we'll get into some more ETFs that are coming out from YieldMax ETF. Maybe we'll be investing into some more YieldMax ETFs. Who knows? Who knows? But thank you anyways so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video next week. Hope you guys have good trading days. Enjoy the July 4th weekend. And I'll see you guys in the next one.